Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and your ID number for us?
Corey Lynn Jackson, 670-6682.
Thank you. My name is Meredith Lamberti, and here with me are Jesse Rincon and James Moses. And we're the three-member panel of the Board of Parole who are going to be talking with you this morning. And before we get started, I do want to go over some things with you so you know what's going to happen today. So the very first thing that's important for you to know is that this Zoom that we're on is a public forum. And that means that members of the public or the media, they can listen to your interview, but not participate in it. But because they can listen, it's important that you know that we'll discuss personal and confidential information today. So that's going to be things like your medical history, mental health history, substance abuse history, disciplinary history, or other confidential information. So do you understand that we'll talk about those things in this public forum today?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you still want to have the interview?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what's going to happen is that each of the three of us might have some questions for you, and we'll start with our questions first. Once we're done with our questions, that's when you'll have the opportunity to tell us anything else you'd like us to know or anything that you might have prepared for us today. Once you've had a chance to make a statement, then the three of us are going to go into our deliberation and discuss what our decision is going to be. And we'll do that here on the Zoom, so you'll be able to listen to that conversation. And then once we have a final decision, I'll deliver that decision, and that will end our interview for the day, okay? And then one final thing, as we were selecting you to talk to and as we were preparing for today, we're able to see a lot of information about you. We can see things like the recommendation from your counselor, any programming that you've done, your behavior inside, any correspondence that we might have received, documents from your criminal case. So this interview is just a piece of what we look at in making a decision. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Are you ready to get started?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to have you start by giving us, a brief explanation of the crime that you committed and what was going on in your life at that time.
First off, I take full responsibility for what happened that afternoon and that evening. It was kind of a lead-up type event. There was a lot of arguing and fighting and stuff like that going on between the two of us leading up to that. My mindset honestly was not in a good place. I will be honest. I was at the time going through a separation, and which I know is not an excuse. And unfortunately, it's kind of like a slow build to what happened. And then unfortunately, I lashed out and I hit Ashley with an open hand across her head and face. Instead of doing what I should have done, which is walk away or de-escalate it, I gave into my, I don't know how you want to phrase it, the other side, and just didn't do that. And I just lashed out. I am truly remorseful for what I did. I mean, I understand, those consequences for my actions, and yeah, it was not a good situation, and I should have done a million different things that I should have done, and I chose none of them, and that's why I'm where I'm at today.
When did you become aware of the extent of her injuries?
I believe it was that same day, that same night, when they took her for surgery.
And can you tell us what your understanding is of the extent of her surgeries?
I understand that the one that I'm aware of is the same evening that it happened. They took her in because she had a brain bleed. So they took her in for surgery. Right then, I was in the parking lot of the hospital at the time. Her mom called me and asked me to come in because she wanted to see me before she went in for surgery. And I stayed there with her and them for a couple of days before I had to go back home to go back to work. But I was aware of the seriousness of the injury later on that evening.
Okay. And do you know how that injury is affecting her today?
I honestly don't, because I haven't heard it. I haven't really heard a whole lot because of the NCO that's in place. So I really don't have that kind of knowledge.
What do you, if you had to guess, what would you think is the extent of her current struggles with the injuries that she had?
In a situation like that, I'm sure there's probably some migraines that I'm sure are happening. I know she suffered those before, but I'm sure those are probably intensified. I'm sure she probably had to do some rehab, probably some speech rehab and stuff like that to try to be able to, fine motor skill rehab and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's probably quite a bit of rehab that had to go into getting her back to where she was prior to our incident.
And what do you think has been the emotional or mental impact on her?
I'm sure it's been significant. I'm sure it has.
I might have some more questions for you at the end, but I'm going to see what my colleagues have to ask you first. Jesse, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Sir, I read the minutes of testimony, and compared to how you described the crime, there's a lot of minimizing. A lot. You left out a lot. So that's my first problem. That's my first problem right now. Secondly, it was a horrible crime. You were really cruel to somebody who just had a surgery. The victim was hospitalized for 18 days. And I also read that if she was not admitted, it would have been fatal for her. What are your thoughts about that?
First of all, I'm not trying to minimize anything, so I apologize if it came across that way. That wasn't my intent. Like I said, I'm truly appalled by my actions. I truly am. I did not realize at the time that it was near fatal till after they got her into surgery right away. So like I said, I did not realize it was to that extent. Like I said, the post-surgery thing, like I said, I'm not trying to minimize. Like I said, I should have done a number of different things, and I did none of them. I should have, walked away. We could have talked it out. We could have done any number of things. And like I said, I didn't know how to control the actions at the time, how to talk about my feelings, what was going on. Like I said, I'm not trying to minimize any of my actions during that process or during what happened at all.
So was there any drugs or alcohol involved in your past? That was all you.
Unfortunately, yes, sir.
Where do you think this violent behavior comes from?
I honestly do not know because that's not the way I was raised. Like I said, I was in a bad spot mentally at the time, and I didn't know how to handle myself at that point, during that point of my life.
So was the victim under your care after the post-op?
We were staying at her mom and dad's place during that situation, yes, sir.
So did anything happen while she was in recovery between you two? What happened? What happened?
There was physical altercations. There were yelling matches and and other stuff that went on. Like I said, nothing that should have happened. Honestly,
What kind of physical altercations happened? She's laid up, so how was supposed to have to be on your part?
Yeah, there would be punches to the arm, punches to the stomach, stuff like that. Just because, like I said, I was lashing out, and I don't understand why.
I have no more questions. Thank you.
James, any questions?
No, no questions at all.
Okay. I have a couple more questions for you, Mr. Jackson. So it looks like your plan right now is the Council Bluffs work release. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Why Council Bluffs?
That's where I am from originally.
Okay. What's your support system in Council Bluffs?
That's where my immediate family, my mom is there. I have aunts and uncles that live in that area. I have an amazing support group of friends, co-workers and stuff like that, church family and stuff that I have there as well. So that's where I was born and raised.
Okay. And it looks like you also have a job letter attached for the area as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that work that you've done in the past, or would this be a new area?
That's where I was working at before my sentence began. So I was working there for a year prior to me coming in.
All right. Any follow-up questions? All right, now is your time to tell us anything additional that you'd like us to know or anything that you might have prepared for us today.
Thank you. Like I said, at the time of the incident, I was not in a good headspace, and I take full responsibility. And Mr. Rincon, I was not trying to minimize my part in that. So once again, I do apologize if it came across that way. Like I said, there's a million things I could have done differently and I did not. And I take full responsibility for those actions and, the subsequent stuff that Ashley has gone through since then. I've lost quite a few people because of this as well. I've been humbled by this experience. It's been very humbling and very eye-opening to kind of go through this experience for the first time. It's something that I don't want to put myself, and more importantly, I don't want to put anybody else through this again. I've embarrassed myself and I've embarrassed a lot of good people, and I understand that other people are paying the consequences for my actions as well, including Ashley. She's paying the consequences also. And if she is listening, I am very apologetic. I am going to do the best I can to be the best person I can moving forward. And I know she can never forget, and I don't know if she'll ever forgive, but I hope at some point she can. And that, I just want her to be happy, be able to move forward. And that's what I'm trying to do as well. And, I've taken classes through here, as you've seen on my file. I've taken health relationships, I've taken life skills, I've done active. I've been a tutor here at North Central since June, so I've been working as a tutor and a project manager, working with the students and stuff down there, and enjoying that work. I have, like I said, I have an amazing support system waiting out in Council Bluffs for me, and I know they're going to keep me on the straight and narrow. I know I can depend on them, and they know the kind of person I am, not this person that did this horrible thing. And I just want to get a chance to prove that not only to them and myself, but also to the community and the state as well.
All right, thank you. We'll have you sit back, listen, and we'll let you know what our decision is.
Thank you.
Jesse or James, what are your thoughts on the recommendation of work release to Council Bluffs?
I can go for it. So I'm gonna be a no. I'm gonna be, sit down for 12, or however it works out.
So that would effectively TDD
Yeah,
him out.
yes.
So I'll make sure you're fine with that.
Yes.
James, did you have any, I guess,
It's gonna,
denial codes or anything that
yeah,
you wanted to add to that?
the seriousness, the 13, propensity for violence. That's all I can think of, you guys think of right now.
James?
I was gonna be a yes. Because I looked at the time. I also looked at, the engagement, what he has been doing, and then the diversionary program, setting up the diversion to be back, which would be out of, Polk County, into Council Bluffs. So, I think Potawatomi County, and looked at the time period and then looked at he's a commit, and can still get some of the assistance that is needed in order for him to continue to grow. But I just looked at the time that took place and looked at what he's been engaged in, what he's been able to accomplish to go with that vote.
Okay. Are you gonna vote and enter that, or are you gonna join Jesse?
I'm a vote. I'll vote.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go with Jesse. I actually have been leaning James's way coming into this with a short time frame left, wanting to, think maybe we could do work release with a GPS, and there were ways to safely do this. Despite the severity of it, but just the immediate downplaying of it was really significant to me, and that's gonna be why I joined you, Jesse. So, Mr. Jackson, our decision today is gonna be a release denied for a period of 12 months. That's what happens when there's a split vote. It's essentially the most controlling vote wins. You heard our discussion. The denial codes are gonna be for the 7, the seriousness of the crime, and the 13 for propensity for violence. We do appreciate getting to talk to you today, and thank you for your time, but that will conclude our interview.
Thank you for your time.